the inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. In 2016, the election puts almost every elected office in Hamilton County on the ballot. This morning, we begin coverage of the races for control of the courthouse by examining the race for the Clerk of Courts, which pits an incumbent with one of the county's best-known ballot names against a youthful newcomer who has transformed his unusual name into a campaign hook. The Clerk of Courts office, which employs over 220 people, according to its website, is primarily responsible for maintaining all the records connected to the Hamilton County court system, both the common pleas and the municipal court levels. The clerk's office annually makes about 8,000 arrests, serves 15,000 subpoenas, and transports 20,000 prisoners to court. The traffic division of the clerk's office processes over 50,000 traffic tickets and 40,000 arrest warrants a year, generating about $13 million. The auto title division issues an average of 430,000 certificates of title each year, generating $70 million of revenue, most of which goes to the state of Ohio, by the way. I am joined now by Tracy Winkler, the current Hamilton County Clerk of Courts. Ms. Winkler was appointed to the position in 2011, winning a full term in 2012. She is a lifelong resident of Hamilton County, a graduate of the University of Cincinnati, and the wife of Judge Ralph Winkler. Aftab Pureval, the Democratic challenger, was born in Southwest Ohio in Dayton and graduated from Ohio State University, where he was elected to the student body president. Mr. Pureval is a graduate of the College of Law of the University of Cincinnati, so he has that connection. Currently, he's an in-house attorney for Procter & Gamble. Both of you, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay. Tracy, let's begin with you. And in your 4+ years in the office as clerk, what do you consider the most important things that you've been able to advance and get implemented that you're proud of?
Well, there are several things. Now, any elected official, what they need to do is to be a great manager of resources. So the resources that we have in the county clerk's office are the people, the budget, and the technology. As far as technology goes, we've been able to upgrade the e-filing system. So not only have we made it easier for attorneys to e-file, but we have also just added a component where a pro se filer, so someone who does not have an attorney, can go ahead and file. We have started a project where we're going paperless in the courtrooms, and that's something really that you'll only mainly see in the federal court systems. So we're excited about that project, which we're in the testing phase of now. A lot of very interesting things. One of the things with technology that you as a historian might be interested in, we had things that were deteriorating, microfilm. Just from the early 1900s, those court records. So keeping those court records safe, we were able to upgrade technology. And just a couple days ago was looking at some court records from the early 1900s. But the greatest thing that I've been able to do is to maintain the budget, but also to take a staff who had had no raises, and probably it had been 6 years for some of them, and to enthuse them about their jobs, to make them excited about serving the people of Hamilton County. So I feel like those are the things that are most important that I did.
Aftab, for you, if you're elected, what would be your priorities? What would you like to do? What would you like to accomplish in this office?
Yeah, thank you, Dan, for giving us this opportunity. I've never run for office before, so it's quite a treat to be on TV. This is exciting. I really believe that I'm the most qualified person to drag our court system into the 21st century. I'm a former federal prosecutor right here in Cincinnati, working for the Department of Justice, protecting our families, and I'm currently in-house counsel at Procter & Gamble. I think I'm the most qualified person to serve as your clerk of courts because, Dan, honestly, our courts have fallen behind other counties throughout the state of Ohio. In Hamilton County, we have some of the highest court fees in the entire state. The people of Columbus, the people of Cleveland, they all pay less to access their courts than we do right here in Hamilton County. So we're paying more, but we're actually getting less, Dan. Not all of our courts accept and process online filings. We just haven't invested in technology to modernize our courts and to really make them accessible and efficient. Our website is a great example of that. Dan, we've had 7 generations of iPhones. Our website looks like it's running on Windows 95. Not all of our courts accept and process online filings, as I've mentioned. You know, if you want to access public documents from the Clerk of Courts, you have to physically come down to a Clerk of Courts office, wait in line, and then pay for hard copy printouts. The amount of taxpayer dollars we spend copying, printing, filing, and then snail mailing hard copy documents would knock you out. Other counties don't operate this way.
How does that relate, though, to what you were just saying? That you said that you had moved forward on technology.
Oh, we absolutely have. You know,
is
we
Aftab
do.
Wrong?
Well, I believe that he's wrong. I think one of the big things that, probably the biggest thing maybe that we have in contention is that the documents being accessible online. First of all, you can find out any criminal or civil activity that anybody has had as far as interactions with the court. I could look you up. I didn't. Actually, I did this morning. I could tell you. Anyway, but you can go and look up somebody's name. You can do a comprehensive name search, and you can get all that information. We have not gone ahead and made those documents accessible. And the reason why is that redaction software is not 100% accurate. You know, I think it's very interesting that actually over the past 2 days I have gotten information from the Clerk of Courts Association concerned about data mining, and then we get this big Yahoo breach that just happened. You know, that's what we're concerned about. We're concerned about your information being available.
But Aftab said that other counties are doing that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. There are other counties. There are several other counties in the state. I'm unwilling in Hamilton County because we would not have 100% ability to redact everything.
Aftab, what about that?
Dan, this is a great example of how we're just falling behind other counties. Cuyahoga County does this, Franklin County does this.
What about the redaction question? Is there a privacy concern here?
Of course there's
that's
a privacy
legitimate?
concern. Absolutely, there's a privacy concern. I'm not interested in publishing folks' sensitive personal information, social security numbers, for example, but this is not an extravagance. Other counties have figured this out. For whatever reason, Hamilton County is still stuck in the past, relying on antiquated notions. Technology can help make us secure, but also make us transparent. And the conventional wisdom, the status quo mentality that our courts are good enough, I wholly reject that.
Aftab also said that our fees are higher here than other places in the state. Is that true? And how does that get set? Who sets those fees?
Right. So our fees in some areas are higher than in other counties. However, the Clerk of Courts does not have authority over setting the fees. The fees are set by the judges within the county, and the judges make the decision about every fee that is paid within the county. So I have no authority over those fees.
What would you say to that?
That's not exactly accurate. So the state legislature sets a fee schedule, and then it's up to local courts and local judges to administer those fees and to set those fees. But what I would push back about is the Clerk of Courts is an elected position. We deserve a leader in this position to not just do the bare minimum, to not just be a caretaker, but to challenge areas where we can do better, and court fees are absolutely one of them. So across the board, we have higher court fees.
Would you say the clerk should be challenging the judges?
I think the court should be challenging the status quo mentality that the courts are good enough. If we want to lower court fees, we should prioritize leveraging technology to make our courts more efficient and save taxpayer dollars so there's not a hidden tax on folks using the court system.
One of the things that has become sort of a public debate between the two of you through the newspapers is that you have proposed a legal self-help center.
Absolutely.
And you say, in your response to that we have all of those services, not in that format. So, but why is a legal self-help center important? And do you still believe, after Tracy responded to you in the paper, that we don't have those services?
Oh, absolutely, Dan. In fact, Tracy's response only made my point more forcefully. And this is another great example of how it matters that a qualified attorney is running our local court system. Our courts are so bureaucratic, so confusing that folks are almost forced to hire an attorney to just figure out the bureaucracy. In Hamilton County, Legal Aid, which is a wonderful organization, can only take about 1 in 5 referrals that it gets. thousands of people are turned away. There is a massive population of folks who have work to do in the court system and just don't have the resources. Tracy's response listed the disparate organizations that do various services that are physically spread around the entire county and even in parts of northern Kentucky, and that's exactly the point. There's not one location, one spot for you to go to get your work done, to get guidance, to get navigation on the confusing court system. And my final point, Dan, is this is a bipartisan idea. A Republican actually came up with this idea. It was instituted in Franklin County to great results. It's a great opportunity for law students locally to get great clinical experience and also to help the Hamilton County citizens.
Tracy, you did respond by saying lots of these services were available.
Absolutely.
Aftab has responded, but that makes his point that we need to consolidate and put them in one place and make them easily accessible.
Right.
What
And
do you say about that?
well, the self-help centers is what are like a kiosk that someone could come into, and that is the proposal that was set out by the legislature or the
Ohio Supreme Court.
Ohio Supreme Court, that's right.
So the Ohio Supreme Court. Great idea. We have in our courts, as I said, there are many different agencies that will help people through their legal issues. One of the greatest things that we have, I said, our resource of people. We have people that are coming in, are calling us. People, even on our website, we have the ability, we have the documents there that people can fill out, that they can access. And the thing is, we are helping people. We are doing this. We are connecting them with the services that they need. And I'm not saying that there should never be a kiosk somewhere. We do actually have a kiosk that connects people if they when they come in and they want to find out where their courtrooms are. We do have that. But honestly, people don't use it. They come in and they still talk to my staff and ask for help.
My understanding, and I don't want to get bogged down in this one, but it's more than a kiosk. It's also sort of a partnership with the law school and bringing law students in to help people. Is that
That's
am I
absolutely right? Yeah, and what citizens hate the most, Dan, is bureaucracy. If you call your local cable company or if you call Duke Energy to find out about a power outage, you're transferred from place to place. People hate that. A self-help center will resolve that, but also give law students great clinical experience. It really is a win-win, and the mentality that our courts are good enough, again, is holding us back.
I want to move on to one other thing. On your website, Aftab, you say that you promise that if you're the clerk, that you'll make sure that men and women who work for the office are paid equally for equal work.
That's right.
Implying that that's not happening today. Is that what you were implying?
Well, so what we found from a Freedom of Information request is that there is a distinction between salaries in the clerk's office between men and women. I'll come in and absolutely address that to make sure that folks, no matter what their gender is, no matter what their political affiliation is, are getting paid commensurate with their experience and with their work ethic.
Tracy, what do you say about that?
It's simply not true. It's simply not true that we not only pay everybody equally, but we probably have more women in supervisory positions, so they are higher paid positions. So it simply is not true. The only thing that makes a difference on how much people are paid is, have they been here 25 years and have they been here 2 years? Mm-hmm. That makes a difference.
Dan, on the issue of employees, political patronage is an open secret here down at the clerk's office. Cincinnati Magazine just wrote about how a majority of people at the clerk's office are registered Republicans. I'll also absolutely address that on day one. When you're applying for a job in the courthouse or whether you're appearing before a judge, your political affiliation should be the last thing that's relevant, and I'll make sure that's the case.
And it is not. It is absolutely not relevant. We don't check anybody's political affiliation. We hire the best person for the job.
Okay. We've only scratched the surface.
Absolutely.
But thank you for being here this morning. My understanding is the first time you've been able to do this together, so really appreciate it. To find out more about these candidates and their backgrounds and positions, check out their websites at www.tracywinkler.com or at voteaftab.com. So thank you, and hopefully we've answered a little bit of what's an Aftab, which is out there.
That's right.
Stay tuned. After the break, millennials are potentially the biggest single demographic group who can vote this fall. The question is how to get them registered and how to turn them out to vote. Welcome back. 2016 could be a watershed election in a way that you might not have considered. Since 1980, the baby boomers and their parents have dominated every presidential election cycle. Just 4 years ago, the boomers and previous generations constituted 56% of the entire electorate. This year, for the first time, the millennials, those born between 1982 and 2001, the dates are a little squishy, combined with Gen Xers, the generation, and that generation could include 126 million potential voters, making them 56% of the potential voters and displacing the aging, shrinking baby boomer cohort like me. So, polling shows that the millennials are more diverse demographically and tend to be more liberal than earlier cohorts. They are the most educated generation in history, but face significant student loan debt. They also confront significant underemployment, often piecing together multiple part-time jobs that, combined with the fact that 90% of all children are born to millennials, mean that they are especially sensitive to the high cost of child care. But potential is just that, potential, not reality. You have probably heard that this is a turnout election. Whoever turns out their voters will win. Well, let me tell you, after 48 years being in and around elections, every election is a turnout election. So the issue is, who can tap the potential and go to the polls? One group who is investing heavily in this strategy is Next Gen Climate Action, a super PAC founded and funded by Tom Steyer, the California-based founder of Faleron Capital Management, a hedge fund company. Steyer is a longtime Democratic donor, and Next Gen Action believes that the best way to advance progressive climate policy is by getting millennials involved in electoral politics. For that reason, Next Gen has targeted Ohio and 8 other states this election. I am joined now to explain this strategy by David Miller, the Communications Director, Deputy Communications Director of Next Gen Action Ohio, and Amanda Wurst for Next Gen Action Ohio, who is the Communications Director. So the two of them work together, came down from Columbus today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
So the organization is interested in climate policy, but this year at least, you're driving on a political policy. Explain the connection of those two things.
Well, since 2013, Next Gen Climate has been acting across the country to bring climate change to the forefront of American politics. And for all of the reasons that you just outlined, millennials this year have the power to be a major influencer in this election. And we also know that climate change is an issue that millennials care very deeply about, and will be the ones living with the consequences of inaction on climate change for the longest. Not only millennials, but millennials' children. And so for those two reasons, we are pursuing a strategy where we are on college campuses, getting folks registered to vote and getting them excited about this election and making sure that they turn out on Election Day.
David, what's the biggest problem here? Is it getting people who have turned 18, they're now in college, they've got other things on their mind, just getting them focused, or is it getting them excited? Is it that they're not, when they look at the presidential candidates and the presidential race, which has been a very unusual one this year, they're holding back on getting involved?
Well, we've seen a lot of excitement from the millennial generation. The millennials were heavily behind Bernie Sanders in the primary.
They were.
And Next Gen Climate is working to capture that enthusiasm. And one of Senator Sanders' main messages was talking about the transition to clean energy. And he has been an early supporter of the transition to clean energy, as has Secretary Clinton. And so we're excited to rally millennials around this issue and get them eager to vote on November 8th.
But when you go onto a college campus, and I know you started a campaign at the University of Cincinnati the other night, when you talk to people who aren't registered to vote yet, why do they tell you they're not registered? I mean, as someone who was that age at one point, getting registered and getting involved and having a right to vote was, so there's going to be some of those people. But why are people who aren't registered, what are they telling you why they haven't done it?
We've had, and this is anecdotally, some young people who have just said they didn't really know how to get through the process. And we have had several instances where we have been on a college campus, particularly during move-in days. We were capturing 18-year-olds who are sort of out on their own for the first time and saying, this seems like a really daunting process, but we had somebody there who could walk us through every step of the process and make us feel very confident that this was easy and the right thing to do. So being right where they are and capturing them once they're on campus, it was really critical to helping them get involved. It wasn't a question of apathy as much as experience. And so we've been able to kind of educate and bring people along.
In Ohio, people can continue to register up until October 6th?
11th.
October 11th. Okay. I knew you'd know it. I forgot. It's been a few weeks since I did that one. So October the 11th. What kind of success have you had up till this point in getting people to go from non-registered to registered, David?
Well, we've had many people across campuses in Ohio who have come to our tables and come to our people on campus and asking, what are you doing? What are you doing here? And our field organizers are on campus talking to them first and foremost at this point about registering to vote.
Can they register them?
Yeah, our folks on campus are registering voters every day, and submitting those registrations, and we're registering all voters, whether they support the the transition to clean energy or not. It's important that everyone is registered to vote, and we're excited to move them.
So, do you have any numbers of how many millennials you've been able to register in Ohio at this point?
Our goal is 40,000,
okay,
which is aggressive, and we are already in tens of thousands.
You're in
of
the tens of
registers.
thousands. Okay, so as I tried to point out, NextGen does have this background of being founded by someone who's very clearly a Democrat. There's also a belief that the environmental climate agenda cuts for the Democratic candidate, cuts for Clinton. So that's clearly what you're after here. So how much pushback do you get? How much do you find that, that's polling data, but when you get in there and talk to people, how much is that driving people?
Particularly millennials, it's a very, very an issue that's very, very highly prioritized for them. You mentioned some other ones, of course, student debt and in the economy. But millennials also see how climate impacts those factors as well. NextGen Climate did a recent study that millennials, a 21-year-old who graduated college in 2015, will see, because of climate change and the effects of it on the economy, will see $126,000 less in income over their lifetime. For a child born of a millennial, so a child born in 2015, it could be $500,000.
90% of all children being born are to millennials.
And that could cost $467,000 over the course of their lifetime. So they also see the potential for jobs in the clean energy sector. Another report that we did with NextGen Climate showed that just in Ohio, a transition to 100% clean energy by 2050 would create 87,000 jobs. And so millennials, it is absolutely about sort of the protecting our planet, making sure we have clean water and safe air, but also they see these larger
I'm very aware
issues.
Of time, so I want to ask a question. One thing is getting people registered. Another question is getting them to turn out to vote. So once you get past October the 11th, does the strategy change, and is that what you're after, actually getting them to go to the polls?
Yes, absolutely. And we also, in addition to registering voters now, we're also having them sign commit to vote cards, which studies have shown is very effective. When somebody actually signs their name to a piece of paper and made that commitment, they are more likely to get out to the polls. And we will be, in Ohio in particular, we also have early voting.
Yep.
So there will be the emphasis on getting folks to go to an early vote center, to vote by mail from the convenience of their home or from
And the Secretary of State has said over 250,000 people have already voted early. literally. So that's being used very much. I want to make sure that people know how to find out more and also find out information about not only Next Gen Climate Action, but also about registration. So check out their website at nextgenclimate.org. And there's all kinds of information. Thank you for coming down and being with us this morning, and we'll see what happens. Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Next week, we begin with the race for Ohio House of Representatives in the 31st District, featuring two candidates who have never held office, Mary Yeager and Bridget Kelly. Have a good week.